I'm waiting till everybody gets their seats. All right, you all settled? Welcome to our third Freeport meeting, first one in Fife, but the only one in Fife. I've got some apologies. Douglas Chapman is working, he's in Westminster. Annabelle Ewing can't come, Shirley-Ann Somerville can't come, Murdo Fraser can't come, Alex Rowley and Claire Baker send their apologies. Elizabeth Smith didn't reply, neither did Mark Ruskell, neither did Ross McCall or Alexander Stewart. And every councillor in the area, within the Freeport area, was invited, and none of them have responded, and none of them are here. And the leader of Fife Council was also invited and hasn't responded, so that's that.
Usual suspect.
So we have four guest speakers. Sarah Salyers, who you all know, I'm sure. John Forbes is a very interested member of the public who has done a lot of research into Freeports. We have Julie Parnell, who's ISP, and sorry? Oh my God, sorry. Julie McAnulty.
We get mixed up a lot.
From ISP, and Neil Hanvey, as you all know, is the MP for Kirkcaldy Cowdenbeath and has an interest in this as well. So I'm going to hand you over first to Sarah. All right, thank you.
My apologies for pushing in first. It's just I have to leave at a quarter to, so I said I'm going first. You're going to hear a lot of information about what Freeports really mean. Many of you already have heard a lot about Freeports and what they represent. You might have heard how much good they're going to do for the Scottish economy and for the net zero targets and jobs, and and with net zero you assume it's going to be environmentally friendly. Well, you're going to hear that that is not the case. What's coming up is an absolute disaster. And I want to lead off by putting in some background to what my fellow speakers are going to tell you. The first question, when you begin to realise just how hellish what we're looking at is likely to be, is how do we stop it? What are the grounds on which we can stop it? We're used to feeling absolutely helpless and powerless, but there are some things that you really need to know. You need to know that the territorial assets of Scotland, every square inch, about down to as far as you can go in the earth, to hundreds of feet up, and 120 miles, I think. Neil, is it out into the sea? Is the
200.
Is it 200? Thank you. Is part of the territorial domain, that which Scotland owns. Now you need to know, and we need to know, exactly who owns it. You need to also know that the UK Crown. There's a UK Crown. Charlie's King of the UK. Actually, that's a lie. There's no such thing. There's an English crown and there's a Scottish crown. And it's the English crown that he takes his oath under, and Scotland's is just kind of added into that old English coronation oath. But Scotland's crown still remains. It is there in law. It's never gone anywhere. So you need to know the difference here. In England, the crown owns, well, I'll read you this. Conventional feudal theory and practice was based in England and elsewhere on the premise that a kingdom was first and foremost a feudal entity, and in that sense the property of its king or queen. In Scotland's feudal system, this situation was radically tempered by the Crown's status as representative of the community of the realm, which vested that ownership in the sovereignty of the people. You own, I own, we own every last square inch of Scotland, which is vested in the sovereignty of the community of the realm. That's us. I'll go on. Crown property rights in Scots law, which are an important part of Scotland's system of land ownership, are also distinct from Crown property rights in the rest of the UK and belong to Scotland as a sovereign territorial nation. Scotland's rights of sovereignty over its territory are vested in the Crown, with its distinct constitutional and legal identity in Scotland under Scots law, compared to the Crown in the rest of the United Kingdom under English law. This distinct identity was not affected by the Union of the Crowns in 1603 and has continued since the Treaty of Union in 1707, when Scotland ceased to be an independent state, but continued to be a sovereign territorial nation. So how come our territorial assets are being disposed of without so much as a consultation with the people who own them? What is happening is that Scotland's territorial assets are being administered in a form of trust, worse, under the right of the English Crown. There is nothing in the constitutional settlement that underpins the Treaty of Union that allows that. The Queen, who negotiated and prosecuted that treaty, Anne, took an oath. It's called the Scottish Oath of Accession, in which she swore to protect and keep inviolate the rights, the Scottish Crown and its rights, rents and privileges. She wasn't taking an oath to herself, she was taking an oath to the community of the realm, the Crown of Scotland. So she had no authority to transfer Scotland's Crown territorial rights into a new United Kingdom. The parliaments neither of Scotland nor of England had that right either, and that is why the Crown of Scotland continues, though nobody ever tells you that. What's happening is that our assets are being administered under a trust, under the English Crown, in right of the English Crown by the Anglo-British state, as though we were a Crown dependency. It isn't lawful. The problem is we have an establishment, and I call it the fortress of the official narrative. If enough people say it, if enough judges, if enough lords, if enough MPs, if enough historians and commentators say it, then it must be true. Because how could all those people be wrong? Well, I have a friend who says 1,000,000 flies eat dung. There's a hoax at the heart of this. And so part of what we will have to do to stop this comes back to the sovereignty of the people of Scotland. This is fraud. It isn't legal because the Supreme Court says so. Courts don't make law. Courts interpret law. And, as Neil Hanvey can tell you, the Supreme Court can get it wrong and get it badly wrong in its interpretation. We know that. The law remains the law, and the reason that we are up against a mountain here is for no other reason than that we have been sold what they call a crock. We've been told there's a crown of the United Kingdom. When you look at the first Petroleum Extraction Act, you will see that the right to the minerals, the oil, the gas, the coal, are vested in His Majesty. But that's only under the English crown, because the monarch isn't the crown in Scotland. And that crown was never transferred. So we're going to have to challenge the legitimacy of what is essentially an act of criminal fraud by a state against a sovereign territorial nation. And this is going to come as a big shock to most people. It's going to be, well, how can they possibly be wrong? How could you be right about this? We're right about it because that's the law. That's what it says. And it doesn't become right, just, or legal because the plundering, colonizing state says whatever I decide is right and legal is going to be right and legal. So we're going to have to get ready to fight this all the way to the international courts. We're going to have to start looking at issuing notices to everybody involved in these Freeport initiatives and these contracts that they're about to enter into unlawful contracts, and we are going to be challenging them. They will have that notice if they go ahead and the day comes when they go to their international corporate courts and say, we entered these contracts in good faith and we're entitled to keep them, and we will say, no, you didn't. We told you to begin with. These are the rights of the sovereign territorial nation of Scotland. So I want everyone here to practice saying loudly and as often as you possibly can, the sovereign territorial nation of Scotland. Can I hear it just the once? The sovereign territorial nation of Scotland. That is our basis for challenging this all the way. And it underpins what we are saying about the rights of the sovereign people of Scotland politically, judicially, and territorially. I'm going to stop in case, because there's a good few speakers and I think a lot of people are going to have questions, and because I've got to leave early. So, can I, can I open it for a few questions before I go?
Yes, you can.
Thank
I'll
you.
take the mic. Have you got any questions for Sarah? No?
Yeah, how's it going to be funded?
Hi Sarah. So why are we just learning about this now? I mean, you know, previous Scottish governments, have they ignored this? Have they just not been aware of it, or what, you know?
Okay, so you've all heard of I've just actually written an article about this. You've all heard of what they call an ad hominem argument. Well, that means basically, if someone's character can be knocked down, then what they're saying doesn't need to be listened to. So the validity of somebody's character determines the validity of what they're saying. An example of that is if Donald Trump said, it's raining outside, there's an awful lot of people would assume the sun was shining. It works the other way. Let me give you an example. In the 40s and 50s, or there in America, almost the entire medical establishment was co-opted by the tobacco industry. And there were adverts all over the place telling people how good for your health smoking tobacco was. There was a tiny group of what today would be called conspiracy nuts who kept insisting that there were facts, that there was research that showed that tobacco smoking is deadly. But they were nutters. Everyone knew they were nutters because the doctors emphatically, reassuringly, confidently, convincingly told them that this was nonsense, how good tobacco smoking was for your health. Eventually, the group of nutters turned out to be decent, committed truth tellers. We all know about that. For early on after the Union, I wouldn't have, if I was complaining about what the British state was doing, I would have had a ready audience, everybody knew. Nobody thought that we were a voluntary partner in a union. By the time of the first Jacobite Rising, everybody knew. Everybody knew that we'd been co-opted. Everybody realised that we had been annexed. But over time, force and attrition and colonization, oppression, continued for so long that eventually the situation became accepted. We had an establishment completely co-opted by the Anglo-British state. Then we got into the beginning of the United Nations, right after the Second World War. And in the 1950s, the British state was asked about Scotland's status. And the reply that was given, what they did was they held a royal commission headed up by a certain Lord Balfour, who has a great deal to answer for in terms of the terrible situation we're seeing in Israel and Palestine today. He headed up this royal commission, and in chapter 1 it stated, and this is really interesting, Scotland is a nation. It entered the Union as a voluntary partner and not a dependency. Something that is administered under a foreign crown is known as a crown dependency. So that question had been asked. Now, I confirmed with a retired Supreme Court judge recently that that report and that statement was put together and submitted to the international community in response to inquiries. You don't say Scotland is not a dependency unless someone's asked you if it is. That became the established fact, and people accepted it. How many people heard the Scottish Lord Advocate, Dorothy Bay, explaining, as at the beginning and again, more than once, in her submission to the Supreme Court, Scotland and England ceased to exist as kingdoms and were replaced by the new kingdom, the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Everybody, did you hear anyone challenge it? Anyone from the Scottish government? Anyone? Because everyone just knows. But the fact is, you don't get a crown, a kingdom without a crown. A crown and a kingdom go together. If you have a kingdom, you have a crown. If you have a crown, you have a kingdom. And since we still have the Scottish crown, and we still have the English crown, we still have the Kingdom of England, and we still have the Kingdom of Scotland. But the English crown has been put in place over the top of Scotland. But this has all been buried. Now, when a Scottish Lord Advocate says that, and nobody challenges it, it's just how it is. But I will tell you this, it is as truthful and as factual as tobacco smoking is good for your health. And it is a matter of everyone has simply believed it. Everyone has accepted it. Everyone knows because the experts have told you, the doctors have told you. And so when the facts come along, nobody can believe them. We've got a big job to do. But the job is to get through to people that just because 1,000 million flies eat dung doesn't mean that's a healthy thing to do.
So, yes.
I've got one here.
Got another?
You need that microphone?
No, sharing one.
I'm just thinking about what I was going to say. Yeah. One positive thing I noticed at the SNP conference. Yes.
Something to listen to.
The words were uttered. The words that are on your Sterling directive were uttered. And if you noticed, the sovereign people of Scotland, he said it. I've never heard it said before. Do you think he picked it out of there?
I'm absolutely sure that he did. And, I did bang my head pretty hard on the table when I heard it, but one of the things that the First Minister said at the rally in Edinburgh, God help us, was that we really need to make the claim of right law so that the Scottish Parliament can become sovereign. But he said we really need the claim of right. Leave the rest of it out. We just need to go and explain to him that it is already law, that it is a binding, ratified condition of the Union, and that's because of what's coming up through the membership. If you look at what's happened over the last year, when I first stood up and said, what happened to our constitution? What happened, what about the claim of right? For quite some time, there was, what a lot of idiots these people are. Moon howlers, rainbow chasers. This is not this ancient, moldy document that is nothing to do with anything except religion, which is actually the bit that's fallen away. And look at it now. Claim of right. Whether he understands its law or not, and we'll go and explain it to him. He's talking about it because the people are talking about it. This is what's great about this. This belongs to all of us. This doesn't belong to any party. This is what we can all unite behind. You'll hear it from all politicians now. At last, the people of Scotland are sovereign. Now we just have to explain what that means. That it means that we have political sovereignty. And actually, when you translate that through, the right to remove a government and replace it with, and it's not just me saying that as some kind of radical thing, that was what the Claim of Right for Scotland said in 1989. The right to choose the form of government best suited to our needs. Any form. We can have direct democracy. We can have no democracy, God help us. We can have whatever we choose because we're sovereign. That's radical. That's what it means. And this is our land, and we own it. And there is not one damn thing in that treaty, or any of the negotiations leading up to it, that said that what belonged to the Scottish Crown could be transferred to the English Crown. If they weren't going to put together a united Crown, which they couldn't do, they're stuck with the fact that we didn't have a territorial union. Maybe political and economic, no territorial union. And I will point this out, have you ever heard anyone, including the Lord Advocate, talk about the political, economic and territorial union? Ever? They talk about a full political and economic union, and they leave out the territorial on purpose, because there was no such union. That is a piece of sleight of hand that has just travelled on past. Well, there was a new kingdom and the rights. No, there wasn't. That's Scotland's. And yes, you're right. Things have changed, and people are picking up on it, and that's a very, very good sign.
Anybody else?
Is everything you've just been talking about actually upheld by the Treaty of Union, Article 19?
The Treaty of Union falls on Article 1. Do you know why?
No.
Article 1 of the treaty sets out the purpose of the treaty: to create a single, unified and new kingdom known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And that never happened. So you can forget the rest.
That's a good answer.
Can I just ask about the Crown Estate? What is meant by the Crown Estate? I thought of it as being a strip of land at the edge of the sea, but I also have been told that bits of it have been sold off to private people. Could that happen legally, or has it happened legally, or how does that work?
Well, given that what has been happening is what they've been doing is quietly administering Scotland as a trust under the English Crown. There's nothing anywhere that makes that legal. What they say is we're one kingdom and we can do it that way, and there's one crown. but when you look into it, there is not. So what they say, what the Crown Estate is, it manages the Crown interest. And I'll quote the Crown Estate Commission from 1998. Crown interest means an interest belonging to Her Majesty, not in Scotland, in right of the Crown. It should be Crowns, but she's not Queen of Scotland, or she wasn't Queen of Scotland anyway. Or belonging to a government department, or held in trust for Her Majesty for the purposes of a government department. That's how the Crown Estates work. Everything that belongs to the Crown that is not managed by the government is managed by the Crown Estate. The thing is, they pretend that the Crown is the English Crown, and they don't address, and they get round the Scottish Crown by treating it as a trusteeship. Is that clearer?
So, is it possible legally to have sold off bits of this estate to private landowners without the agreement of the people, us, beforehand?
It's possible to do it fraudulently and claim that it's legal, and that's what's happened.
That's what I suspected.
Thank you. Any chance we could discuss Freeport tonight?
I'm done. What I'm explaining is the reason why we have a claim and a way of stopping it. So as I said, what I wanted to talk about, because I have to go, is how do we stop them? What are the grounds that we can use for stopping them? And in order to...
So how are you going to implement it then?
You will have to challenge this all the way, because they will fight tooth and nail. You will have to take this all the way to the international courts. We will have to do that.
The Scottish people.
Well, start with the...
no control over our media whatsoever. How are you getting this message out?
I'm going to hand over for the very exciting argument that's clearly about to follow, and I'll hand over to John and head over here. Unless Neil, would you like to come in here?
Relaxed. I'll speak whenever you want me to. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Right. How do you describe Freeport in one word? In my opinion, abomination. The gentleman there brought up there, what do? We fight. We have to fight. Because this is the biggest attack on Scotland that you could ever possibly imagine. We are not going to benefit a single penny from it, at all. Now, there was a list of apologies that couldn't make the meeting tonight. I'm going to read the list that are partners, that are actually part of Freeport. And many of these are the reasoning for why they're not here. Because they don't want to be here. They don't want to be answering the questions that we've got. Because these things are probably, you have no idea. Right, I'll start with this and then I'll go to the other things. But you've got Arrow Gibb, Bryden Baker, Cala Chemical, and this page will answer a few questions. Catapult, City Deal Region, Edinburgh, South East Scotland, Edinburgh Airport, Edinburgh Council, Edinburgh College, the University of Edinburgh, ENBW, BP, Falkirk Council, Fife Council, Fife Chambers of Commerce, Fife College, Forth Valley, Net Zero, Forth Valley College, Forth Valley and Forth Ports, and a certain company that's in Grangemouth. Right? Invest Fife, NMIS, Ocean Engineering, Paramall, Strathclyde, Glasgow, University of, the Scotland 5G Centre, Scarborough Muir and Queensferry 1. Now, that is why nobody from the council, councillors or local MPs want to come here, because they're scared to death of the answers and the questions that they're going to have to answer. Now, within these Freeports, now there was a question asked Well, it was kind of prompted to the meeting in Larbert last week. Why is there three ports in the east of Scotland and there's none in the west? Well, it's very simple. If you look at the Forth, for example, you can start as far up as Methil docks. Then you come down to Burnt Island. You've even got the wee docks at Inverkeithing that collect the scrap. Then you go round the corner, you're into Rosyth Port, Rosyth Naval Dockyard. Then you go up the Forth, you've got Crombie Point. You've then got Grangemouth Refinery, Grangemouth Port, back down a wee bit. Then you go to Edinburgh, Edinburgh Airport, Turnhouse, Porteleith, and that's pretty much all the industrial bits that are worth anything, anything of worth. Now you go up to Inverness. Now what's happening in Inverness? The renewables. They're building the hydrogen plant up there. That is part of the Freeports up there. This is possibly the biggest land grab asset strip that Westminster has done to Scotland under the guise of a partnership with the SNP government. Now, that to me is beyond the pale. As a sovereign Scot, my territory has been taken from underneath my feet without my wishes. Now, gentlemen, probably asked the questions, why don't we know about it? I was at a march in Larbert and Falkirk with under one banner. I was asked to hand out leaflets after that. I managed to hand out 4 leaflets. And it wasn't for the one to try, and I can tell you. But the 4 people that I came across knew nothing about Freeports. Nothing at all. And when you explain to them what they are, you can actually see in their faces how shocked and disgusted they were. Now, what can we do about it? These meetings, for example, are a great way of getting information out. But we have to stand together, as what they did with the poll tax. Because this is similar, this is worse than poll tax. Because what you're going to find here, workers' rights, anybody that works in these free ports, their workers' rights are completely and utterly annihilated. You'll probably find that you have workers, you have friends here that work in these areas, will be replaced by people that are going to come in. Maybe work a little bit cheaper, they don't have to worry about the same rights, etc, etc, etc. The environment. Now, that certain gentleman that's a director of that place in Grangemouth, a certain company that threatened to take the Scottish Government to court for the fracking ban, is also on the board of Freeport. Now, environmentally, right, do you honestly think for 1 minute, if there's a couple of bob to be made, if he can start fracking, he is going to start fracking. Because what's in that border isn't Scotland. The Scottish Government have no control, overright control of what's in those free ports, because Westminster have got their claws into it, and they are just a partner that, as a sovereign Scot will say again, is beyond the pale in my opinion. Now, 2013, 2014, we'll remember that. We were all told that if you vote yes, there'll be a hard border between Scotland and England. Do you know that these free ports were going to have hard borders in Scotland? Because everything inside these free ports, and they control themselves. You could almost imagine them like a city of London. You've got London and you've got the city of London. They've got completely different laws. So you've got to, the government have got to try and trust that these companies are going to play by the rules. No, they're not. There's going to be money, drugs, everything you can imagine flowing into these things, and there's no control. Criminals being able to escape to them because they're out of the control. Now, how you want to look at that, how's it going to benefit you? It's not. If you've got a business inside the place, you're laughing. If you've got the same business outside, you're pretty much stuck. Now, if that doesn't bother people, I don't know what does. If you've got a nice wee house that you've worked hard for all your days, with a nice field at the back, and then you see this drilling rig coming, and they start fracking, that £350,000 house, you would not be able to give it away. And that's what people need to understand, that they will not stand by and say, well, you know what, I feel sorry for you, it's a nice house. They're going to come in hammer and tongs, and we need to start fighting. The land grab and asset strip, I've already said that. Now, what we're going to find ourselves in a situation that really saddens me the most. The Freeports happen tomorrow, and we become independent next week. Do you know, we will then find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to fight for our own territory back. Just like what we saw with the MPs trotting for Westminster to Brexit. arguing over bits and pieces. That'll come back and bite us hard on the backside if we do not stand together and do something about this. Now, I'm not talking about, well, you have to be sensible, right? But we have to stand up. You know, poll tax came to Scotland. I was a young teenager when that came about, but I witnessed what happened when it went down south, and it was the end of Thatcher. And that's what we have to do with Freeport, because this is a big attack on this area. And if you actually look at the map, it's not just the estuary. It takes a fair chunk of Fife, it takes a fair chunk of Edinburgh, and a fair chunk of Grangemouth. And if you think of all the mines that are all around about this area that are just sitting ready to get tapped into by a fracking thing, then you can understand the amount of devastation about round about here. Now, the information that you can find readily online is about the Freeports down south, and I'm going to mention Teesside. Now, Teesside, there was a programme on about swimming in sewage, and there was one bit regarding the deep sea dredging to make the deeper for the bigger boats to come in so they could make more money. Now, the stuff that they picked up for the seabed, they dumped out in the ocean, and it was killing seals, it was killing fish and crab life. That's fact. Now, anybody knows Fife. You've got Marconi's, they were technically dumping in the 1940s, the bomber sites. Now you've got the Rosyth Naval Dockyard that's been there for goodness knows how long. If they start deepening the oceans, you've got the wee port at Inverkeithing that collects the scrap. Now if he wants to make a couple of more quid, he's wanting that so he can get bigger boats in. Then you've got the same at Burnt Island. So the thing with Teesside was they linked back chemicals back to the industrial age. Things that had been locked in the seabed for 100 years. I don't know what will be round about there, but there's things in Cramond, there's wee signs there that tell you already not to pick up shellfish. Now, Brayfoot, Musmorn, that was another thing, that is another plant that's in within the Freeports. Now, if you look at the maps that are out about there, I think then you'll understand the level of, I'm going to use the word corruption because that is what it is. It's been, I've not been asked if they want my permission for it. I was talking to a gentleman that was at the SNP AGM, and how it was portrayed to him was it was a good thing for Scotland. It's not. It's not a good thing for Scotland, and that's what we need to start thinking about and how we're going to fight things. And the gentleman there says, how do we do it? Well, do you want to do it? Do you want to fight for your own right? You know, I don't know your personal circumstances. You might have a really nice house with a nice field out the back.
I do, aye.
Right, well, and you've got a drilling rig back there, that nice house in...
No, I haven't at the moment.
No, but if it was, then you would think to yourself at a day like this, I wish I'd never done something.
Well, that's how I played the meeting tonight, funnily enough.
Can we have listen to all the speakers before we do more questions? If that's okay.
Well, could
No,
I just
no, can we just listen to all the
that
speakers
side
first?
just now for this gentleman who sat behind me actually? If you don't mind, you know, I will be quick. I'm not usually quick, but I will be. Better for you.
But we're going to have questions for everybody at the end.
Yeah,
Because
I
the
know.
time's running on and we need to hear the speakers. If you don't mind.
Well, okay.
You can have the first question and everybody.
All right.
Is everybody hear me okay?
Do you want a mic here?
I can. If you can't hear me, use a mic, but I'd rather just be on my feet and sit at a table. Is that okay?
Can
So-
you put it closer to your mouth because it's on live stream, otherwise people can't hear.
Okay, that's fine. So my starting point for my contribution to this discussion tonight is to cast your minds back to the hope and aspirations of 2014. That new type of Scotland that we envisaged as part of the independence movement. And nowhere in that was the acceptance of the continued robbery of Scotland's vast natural wealth. Now, I'm from the left wing of politics, without any doubt. That's definitely where my politics rests. However, there is some advantage to drawing in inward investment and job creation. When you say Freeports and people hang shiny baubles out to suggest that there's going to be massive inward investment and lots of jobs, a lot of people are seduced by that, and the organisations that John's just listed Many of them are attracted by the promise of some form of advancement. The colleges will be thinking, we can design courses to equip young people to fulfil the jobs that these big businesses are going to bring into the Fife Estuary. We'll be able to be part of the green energy revolution. And that is exactly how it's being sold. And there was a debate today in Westminster Hall that was about the important role of ports to the UK and the green revolution as we move forward. But what they don't tell you is that the advent of free ports removes all regulation. It hands the governance of the designated area, which is not just a wee boundary around the port itself. And in the situation in the Fourth Estuary, it comes significantly inland. So anything within the curtilage of that boundary is operated under the governance of a private company. And there is no jurisdiction or inreach from the national government or the UK government or Fife Council to stipulate what regulations that private company either institutes and observes, it's all done on trust, or more importantly, how they can scrutinise and hold them to account. And Teesside is an excellent example of where it has been impenetrable to get a reasonable response from the operating organisation of that free port when there have been serious concerns raised about it. And so I want to sort of take a side step across to political ideology and think a little bit about what neoconservatism is. Now, if you know what neoconservatism is, I apologise for my swift and probably rather sparse view of it, but it's conservatism, it's capitalism, it is market forces, it is driven, in my view, by greed, avarice, sharp knees and sharp elbows, and it's not about the survival of the fittest. Not at all. It's the people who can game, who can act in corrupt ways, who can manipulate systems, who take advantage, and they don't care about the consequences for the population that suffer. That is what neoconservative is to me, and certainly if I look back at the Chicago School of Economics, and this is an economics school that rose in the 60s and had their test bed in South America, where they created disruption in the political systems of countries so that they could go in and get access to the resources, the natural wealth of that country, privatise it, and then sell those resources off for a profit to operators who had no genuine interest in the welfare of the people of those countries. Chile was probably the first example of where that happened, where Augusto Pinochet was installed as a dictator, and the only failure of the neoconservative plan then was that he wouldn't let go of the copper mines, and that is still the wealth of the Chilean people. So that is the ideology that dresses up this quite fluffy sounding green Freeport. Sounds good, sounds like it's free. The only freedom that exists in a Freeport is the freedom of the marketeers and the corporate interests that control that entity. That is the only freedom that we're talking about. The freedom to dilute workers' rights, the freedom to dilute environmental standards, the freedom to squirrel away contraband, to allow smuggling or to look the other way when smuggling operations come into being. And there are some serious questions about what actually, does the boundary stop where the boundary stops? Because an operator who has a business or part of their business within the curtilage of that Freeport can operate a warehouse operation, which is a pretty broad term, out with that, and it can still be considered to be part of the Freeport. Now, how you are able to inspect and monitor the operations of those businesses within the laws of the land is quite another thing. I mean, I just don't know how that's going to happen. So, I mean, in terms of the broad brush of what a Freeport is, that's kind of what it is. It's a vehicle, a tax haven, for lack of another word, with a secret jurisdiction that the people that live within and without it cannot penetrate to understand what the laws and practices within that boundary are. So, like many of the organisations that John referred to, I find myself in the inevitable position of being completely opposed to neoliberal ideology, but also having to think about the interests of my constituents and the possibility for employment and training and economic development in the constituency, and it extends well into my constituency down through Burnt Island and beyond. And so part of me has to engage with this process, because I still have to try and get the best deal out of it, and I have to understand exactly what they're up to, because I have a responsibility to raise the alarm if I think something very seriously wrong is happening. But I also have to do it in a way that doesn't, provide a disbenefit to my constituents, because I scare investment away. So it's quite a difficult balancing act. But the fundamental challenge is that it is grounded in an ideology of neoconservatism. Now, today's debate, Douglas spoke in it, and he acknowledged some of the very real concerns that we've got collectively, I think, here tonight about the economic and other impacts of a dysregulated area could have on the local population. But it's almost as if there is a complete acquiescence to the idea. And it goes back to this promise of benefit, this nebulous idea that it's all going to be good, guys, don't worry about it. Those nutters meeting in Dunfermline bowling club tonight, they've got it all wrong, it's all going to be great. Well, I hope it is great, but I have very real concerns that it's not going to be great. And certainly in terms of how we stand up to it, which is our fundamental question, that won't be achieved by arcane arguments about ancient laws. It can only be achieved by a united political force that wins a democratic argument. It doesn't matter how upset I get that we didn't achieve success in 2014. We didn't. Democratically, we didn't win it. We can put all the theories about whether the vote was stolen or whatever to one side. We didn't demonstrate that we won that vote. So we have to put that to one side, but we also have to think about, well, how do we demonstrate our democratic support for that as an idea, for example, for independence, or in our opposition for Freeports. And when I was thinking about Freeports, I was trying to think of an analogy that explains what it's like in a very simple terms. But if you go back to the days of the squire or the laird, and they were, the kings of all the survey. They were in charge of the people, they were in charge of the cottages and where the people lived, and what they said went, and you couldn't, quite often politically, people who lived on the land of a lord or a senior member of the aristocracy, they would be told that they had to vote for them. And people would be returned unopposed, because that was the way that things were done. And a Freeport is a bit like the return of the squire, because it is the squire, it is that private company who will say what goes. They will make up the rules, they will evaluate any infraction, they will be in charge of everything that goes on in there. And that is, I think, a message that most people understand, that we are returning to serfdom, to the power of landowners. It may not be what it's called, but in its effect, that is exactly what it will deliver, or could deliver. So there's a real need to galvanise political muscle against not just Freeports, but against a lot of the really inhumane policies that are being thrust upon the people. And the only way you do that is to support a political party and win a democratic mandate. And at the moment, to say that Scottish politics is turbulent or in flux is the understatement of the century. And you track it back to 2007 when Alex Salmond won the first minority government for the SNP, the majority in 2011, the independence referendum. We are still suffering from the turbulence of that seismic change. And whether we like it or not, the government that got in 2015 have failed to deliver on many of the commitments that we elected them to deliver on. And in terms of the reassuring noises that are coming out around Freeport, I'll close with this one example. We were told that the sale of Scotland was an amazing achievement for the people of Scotland. We had made a massive killing on Scotland, great income for the Scottish government on the back of Scotland. Scotland, at the time, before the massive inflation that we've seen recently in energy costs, Scotland was valued at £350 billion over the 25-year lifetime of its licence. The Scottish Government were paid under £700 million for that. The annual income from that will be between £60 and £90 million if the circumstances are right. That income for the licence annually at that time was £15 billion a year. And Scotland is supposed to accept pennies. That was not a success. It was an absolute disgrace. Now, I will not be silent about these types of issues, and I will use every opportunity I have between now and a general election to raise these concerns. But we need to elect people who are actually going to fight for the people of Scotland, not acquiesce to neoconservative policies, whether they're pushed by the Tories in Westminster or some corporate agenda from out with the UK. Because at the moment, the corruption that we experienced during COVID, with vast sums of money being handed out willy-nilly to well-connected politicians, or well-connected people with links to politicians, that will look like child's play. Our resources are being stolen out from under us, whether it's wind, wave, oil and gas. Scotland is receiving no benefit. We get no supply chain jobs, no manufacturing jobs, no service industry jobs. That is the reality, and the only way to change all of this is to elect people who are unafraid to give voice to the concerns that you have, because we can argue the toss day and night about arcane laws, but unless you've got a democratic mandate, the world out there doesn't give a monkeys. Not at all, because you have to make that change, to affect that change, to have real politic change, you have to win a democratic mandate, and that is the only way we can resist these changes. So with that, I'll close and I'll take any questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie McAnulty. I'm from the Independence for Scotland party. Colette Walker was meant to be here tonight. The sheriff was meant to be here, but she wasn't able to come, so you've got the deputy, so please don't shoot me. I get the feeling that I'm in front of a very well-informed audience tonight. I think probably everyone in here, I'm guessing, has heard about Freeports and is probably not in favour of Freeports. And so I'm probably going to adapt what I was going to say tonight slightly with regard to that. Now, before I was in the Independence for Scotland party, in a previous life, I was a North Lanarkshire councillor and I was an SNP councillor. And so part of my interest in this is that we, in North Lanarkshire, we already had a run-in with Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, right? So this was back in 2015, when they came to a place in Cumbernauld called Deer Dykes, and they were attempting to set up drilling bits and drill into the ground and also Jim Ratcliffe, as you may know, has bought up a whole trench of fracking licences as well. Well, we decided we weren't having it, right? And very quickly, the local councillors there, including myself, the local people, and also, to their credit, Scottish Water, got together and told them to get out of the place. Right, we kicked up a huge fuss about it, and because planning law comes mostly under the purview of local authorities, we were basically able to tell them that that the game was a bogey, right? And it wasn't for want of Jim Ratcliffe's men trying, because some of our councillors said that they were visited at their surgeries, right, with maybe wee conversations had and stuff like that, right? But anyway, I'll not get into that. Don't want to get sued, right? But anyway, we knew he would be back. We knew that Jim Ratcliffe would be back, and this is very much my interest in being here tonight, because although we're in Dunfermline, the Freeport, if you have a wee look at the map, is very, very near to Cumbernauld, right, and takes in an awful lot of where those areas are covered by licences, right. And also, as Neil has already pointed out, it's not clear how those companies are going to be allowed to operate out of the Freeport if, for example, Ineos being inside the Freeport area allows him to operate licences outside of that area. This is something we've not been told yet, and it's been very opaque. But what I can tell you without a doubt is that this is basically an asset strip that's going on. I feel there's an acceleration of this going as the support for independence is growing. Okay, and if you look at this Freeport, it's taking in our capital city. It is taking in one of our chief strategic assets in terms of Grangemouth. It is taking in one of our chief ports. That is not a coincidence. And as John already pointed out, the one up in Cromarty is taking in where the hydrogen and stuff like that is going to be. This basically what is happening is the reverse of what happened when we were establishing things like boroughs. Now, I'm from Coatbridge, which was a steel and a coal town. And when I was driving up to Dunfermline tonight, I noticed as it said the Royal Borough of Dunfermline, right? We're just a borough, we're not posh. But for a long time in Coatbridge was not officially a borough, right? And big families like the Buchanans, like the Colts, and other people operated in our area with carte blanche. They could do anything they wanted, basically. And the reason that they could do that was because Coatbridge was not a borough and therefore did not come under local government law and under national law, right? And as it became a borough, things became more regulated and so on. And at the moment, this comes under this kind of thing, fracking and so on, comes under local planning law. And there's also, small matters like health and safety, environment, stuff like that, all of which come under, either Scottish Government or whatever. This is the boroughs happening in reverse. This is like the East India Company going into India, annexing swathes of land, running it exactly as they please, only it's been done to us. And I think there's a sense of disbelief that this is actually happening, that this could happen, because we do have this impression, and the democracy is there. Even though we don't think much of our councillors sometimes, and speaking as a councillor, I can entirely sympathise with that point of view. But the democracy is there, and if someone's not pleasing you, you can kick them out. And if you're concerned about something, you can go along to your surgery. And if we don't like something, to give councillors their due, we can turn around to a company and say, we don't want you here. We're not giving you a licence for this. We're not giving you planning permission for that. Now, the gentleman here has been asking what we're going to do about this. Great question. What we're going to do about it. Now, I'm going to disagree with Neil slightly here. Okay, I do not think that the Claim of Right is an arcane document any more than the Treaty of Union is an arcane document. It still applies, just as the Treaty of Union applies, and the other documents from that time. And we do need, as Sarah said earlier, we do need to dig up all of that, and we do need to start making the case for it and pushing this into the general consciousness. But what I do agree with Neil is that is going to take time. It's also going to take time to elect people who are going to do what you want. And I want to talk a wee bit about the political discourse here, because I was there at the time, and I was in the SNP at the time when all of this was kicking about fracking. And this is what I know about it, which was that the ordinary members in the SNP and ordinary folk, this goes for people who are in the Labour Party as well and so on, were manifestly against fracking, were manifestly against this. And I would hazard a guess that would probably be the same at the moment. I know that at the SNP conference, I think back in 2021, that the members had a vote on this, and they voted against Freeports. At least they laid down a whole list of things in terms of health and safety, that trade unions had to be so on, and all of that's going to be swept over. So that's the good news. There is a consensus underneath amongst what I would call the political class and those who are politically aware to tackle this. But your problem is, as you're saying, is how to contact them and get through this. One of the ways is through meetings, right? Now the other thing is, we've had a whole list here of councillors and so on that have been read out to you. Now again, no harm to councillors, but they probably don't really understand Freeports, and they've probably been told what to do. And basically, what I would want every person in this room to do after this meeting is to go and see your council and say to them, what are you going to do about the fact that your planning powers have been taken off you, that your licensing powers have been taken off you, and that your power as a local authority is taken after you? And when they say, what are you talking about, explain to them that this is exactly what the Freeport is doing. That's the first thing that needs to be done. The other thing is, I mean, we have a meeting here, and I'm pleased to see 30 people here tonight. Should be 300, 400, that's what I would like to see. And basically what that's going to mean is that if people won't come to us, then we need to go to them. So I'm thinking, I mean, this is something that maybe we can discuss later when we're having a general discussion. I think we're basically needing to go around doors, we're needing to get leaflets, we're needing to put them through doors. This is not going to get out in social media. Social media is a bubble, you know. Social media can be shut down. We have been, and I'm sure Neil has experienced this as well, and we've experienced this as a party online and stuff, that when we're putting up stuff about sovereignty or Freeports, all of a sudden it gets shut down. It's going really slow, it doesn't get likes, so on. We're being watched. What is happening, it's hard to describe to you how absolutely outrageous this is. And as I say, I think it's as the vote for independence is going up. They're preparing to asset strip, and we are going to be left, if we get our independence, we are going to be left with problems for years afterwards, dealing with these companies and trying to sort this out. We need to do something now. Salvo, which Sarah was speaking for, is pursuing the legal angle, and this is an essential part, and that is going to take longer, but the time to start that process is now, and that is something that all of you in here, if you don't know about that, need to start educating yourselves on, and need to start speaking about to other people that actually this is not right. Nobody, you know, the land belongs to the people in Scotland. It doesn't belong to the English Crown. It doesn't belong to the government either. In Scotland, it is the people who are sovereign. This is the thing. Not the law, not the Parliament, not the Crown. The people are sovereign. We are sovereign. And that is the base of the whole argument, the legal argument. And we are going to have to pursue this. But anyway, I've probably said enough about this. We've all been talking a lot, and I think it's probably time to open the floor for discussion. Thank you very much.
I want to say something first.
What I should have said when I started, there's leaflets on the table down there. Please go and have a look.
Sorry,
There's some.
can't hear you.
Okay. There's leaflets on the table down there. Have a look. There's some articles from journalists, which are investigative journalists. a rare breed. So have a look. Also in the walls there's maps, things there to have a look at to see how far this actually extends. And on the back table there's a bucket. Because these things cost money, and we're having another one in Edinburgh next month. So if you've got any spare cash, please donate. If you donate, don't worry about it, but if you do, we'd be very grateful. Thank you very much. Now we'll open up. Were you first?
No,
I did. Thank you. Thank you very much. First, actually, I was only going to say one thing, but after having to wait till everybody had finished, I've now got 2 or 3 things to say. Can I ask Neil, is Alapa going to stand any candidates in the general election next year?
This is not about elections.
No, but it's connected to what I'm going to say. Give us a lift of what I'm allowed to ask.
We're talking about Freeports here. Yeah, but
because it might not be about elections, but Neil was talking about people getting elected to be able to deal with these things, and I just want to know, is Alapa standing any candidates next year in the general election? Please.
Well, our Westminster campaign strategy is up for discussion at a conference at the end of next week. We've had quite a lot of and lengthy discussion about what our proposals would be, and we've been pretty upfront about we've pushed for a Scotland United campaign. I still believe that Scotland United is the way forward, but if there are certain parts of the independence movement who do not want to participate in a Scotland United ticket, that's up to them. You can only invite people so many times. In terms of whether we'll be fighting elections, I fully expect to stand. So there'll definitely be a contest in Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath, or as it's going to be called, Cowdenbeath and Kirkcaldy. Whoever came up with that creative shift certainly needs an award of some kind. So our strategy currently is that we are certainly intending to contest the election. What shape that'll take is a decision for membership. So I'm not going to, punt my view of that too much at the moment. But I expect it to be quite a vigorous campaign, and I hope that we will fight that campaign in some shape or form under a Scotland United ticket with other independent support parties. And it's just my personal view now, such as the SSP and the ISP. That would be my personal preference.
Well, you can leave the SNP out. They're not going to have it.
I didn't say that.
No, I know, but you can.
Well, so they've ruled themselves out. So
what I'm saying is, by the sound of it, I hope you do get in again, and I don't know whether Kenny's standing or not, but I hope he did if he does. But
to sort of underline what I'm saying, so Angus MacNeil is intended to stand as an independent in the Western Isles, and we're not going to field a candidate in opposition to him. We will not stand against Angus. He is, as far as we're concerned, the Scotland United candidate for the Western Isles.
It doesn't sound like we're going to have many MPs on our side, other than the SNP, who is doubtful whether they are on our side or not now. So I don't see how we're going to do much about Freeport's for the near future, anyway.
Yeah. Can I make one point on that about what we're going to do? In the debate today, the Tories are in favour of Freeports, the Labour Party are in favour of Freeports, the SNP are in favour of Freeports, the Lib Dems are in favour of Freeports. Every party in Westminster, probably with the exception of the Greens, are in favour of Freeports, and they are. Eh?
No,
you're not.
ISP are not.
Westminster. So, they're not going to stop this. They are all completely and utterly on board.
Well,
so you need different parties.
Yeah, and you also, in my opinion, I went to the meeting that, I'm sorry, what was your name, sir?
John.
John, yeah, sorry. I went to the meeting in Larbert that John was at, John was talking about, and a guy called Pat Lee was promising it was going to approach unions all over the UK to launch some sort of campaign similar to the poll tax campaign, which was mentioned earlier.
What Pat actually said at that meeting, as a union member himself, not anything, he wasn't.
Oh no.
Right.
No.
He was going to approach them to see if they would take charge. Of, because that is, we need to involve everybody. Now, I'm non-political, completely non-political. I'm Salvo, 100%. I don't buy into the politicians at all. We, as a people, are the only ones that are going to sort Freeports.
Quite agree.
Because we are not going to, if you take Teesside for example, there was a wee article put up there, £150 million was taken out of that and £5 million were put back. Now, that's not going to come to us.
Finally, I quite agree with what you say. I'm talking about, I mean, I'm not dissing political parties. But I'm suggesting that it's rather urgent at the moment, and if we wait for Alapa to make a real, impression in the Parliament, which I hope they do, we might be waiting years. And if anything comes of that, say a la the poll tax campaign, which I'm sure people who are not in unions, like people like us, maybe we're not all in unions, we would support. If the unions had a rally somewhere in different parts of the UK, and we'd be there supporting them. And finally on pardon, sorry?
Civil disobedience.
Yeah, civil disobedience, yeah. Finally on that issue, I've witnessed over the last couple of years, the Women Won't Waste organisation setting up street stalls to inform the public of what was happening regarding the gender self-ID issue and other matters. And I've seen it with my own eyes, how when they're handing out leaflets and engaging in conversation with passers-by, these passers-by are absolutely horrified about what they're being told, mouth to mouth, word face to face. I mean, because they get no help from the press. So that's another thing we could do. By having street stalls and raising, like apart from what Julie says, going door to door. Street stalls to bring the public awareness, make the public aware of what's going on with this terrible thing. Anyway, thank you very much for your patience.
We are on? Yeah, we are on, sorry. I'm just going to make a couple of points. My name's Andrew Sinclair. I've come down from Perth. Well, it sort of works. I've come down from Perth this evening because I'm very concerned about the whole Freeport shamaz and wanted to learn about them. And obviously we're all here because of that. Now the gentleman to my right said, who's going to stop them? How are we going to fix it? Well, everybody in this room has a role to play in that, I think. Because we're here, and if we don't bear witness to it, for want of a horrible expression, then who else will? So we can all do a bit about it. Now, I picked up a little bit of paper from the table over there, and while the speeches were going on, through the power of Google, just checked out who some of the people who are involved in the 4th Freeport are. It says 4th Green Freeport, Interim Governance Board. Chief Chairman, Charles Hammond, OBE, who's the interim chair. He's at 4th Port, Chief Executive. Now, what about 4th Ports? Forth ports own Rosyth, Burnt Island, Kirkcaldy, Methil, Leith, Grangemouth, Dundee and Tilbury docks down in London. Forth port's turnover is £288.3 million. Who else is on this board? Well, there's a gentleman from a company called Scarborough Muir Group. What does Scarborough Muir do? They're property regeneration. They're into Rosyth. They're selling on the vision of Rosyth, a £250 million investment opportunity. That sounds a bit like Teesside to me. Now there's pardon my swearing, there's a shitload of money being thrown around here. To diverge just slightly, I would recommend that everybody in this room reads a book called The Poor Had No Lawyers by Andy Whiteman, if you've not read it. Andy was possibly one of the best MSPs we had in Holyrood. Now, the poor had no lawyers. We don't have any lawyers. These guys on the board of Forth Greenport are going to be lawyered to the hilt, because one of the items on their agenda for their first meeting was FOI considerations. Why are they discussing freedom of information considerations, do you think? Because they damn well don't want any FOI inquiries going in. Yet we have people from Falkirk Council, from City of Edinburgh Council, from Fife Council, from the UK government, from Scottish government. We have people from, that's about it. Babcock International, no, they're private, so they won't be applied. We have a lot of people on these boards who are public servants. They have to reply to FOIs, do they not, Neil?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, please, anybody who can, because it's a discussion I'm looking for. And if I've monopolised anything for a bit, I apologise for that. But it just seems that, simple things we could be doing. Somebody said, what can we do? Have we got a Google Maps overlay that shows the area of these things?
On the wall.
Yeah, okay, it's behind me. Is it on Google Maps? Can we link to it? Can we show it to everybody? Because if it's not, that's a very easy thing to do. And if nobody's got the GIS skills, I haven't, but I'm willing to try and learn.
Okay. I just want to address...
I'd be happy with the Scottish Government website, except that if we are going to use it as a campaigning tool against this, it needs to be on something that people can have on their sat-nav. It needs to be on something where people can put their postcode in and see that the field behind their house is going to be impacted. It needs to be on something where you can overlay a picture of the area that this thing is going to cover, and I include the one up north in Cromarty as well. And you can look at it and show people a picture that zooms in and zooms out and shows every postcode that's going to be affected by it, that you can search and see how many businesses are in each postcode, how many homes are in each postcode. There's a lot of stuff we can do if we've got some willingness and desire to do it. I guess I'm kind of putting my hand up and saying I'm willing and here and able to help.
I just want to address the freedom of information, because that was one of the first things we did, and we wrote to Edinburgh Council, freedom of information, and everything that was of any consequence we think was redacted. So there was nothing in the document. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
But we can keep doing it. We could all write an individual FOI request and go through the...
To the gentleman from the gentleman to Perth, see if you actually look for information regarding Forth Freeports, you probably have a more chance of seeing hair follicles on my forehead. And that is the God's honest truth. It's the only time you can ever find anything about Freeports is the Freeports that have happened down south. And all the information that's coming from down south, it's just utter corruption. They don't care. They do not care. So it's down to the people, not necessarily the politicians. Down to the people, because you've got gentlemen like Neil that will probably do his utmost to try and help us. But at the end of the day, the power of the people outweighs the power of the politicians.
So why don't we create a website?
Absolutely. I don't know about a website, but communications is key.
The fundamental problem around FOIs and GDPR and the like, and those types of questions going into the bodies to which you can ask those questions is that because of the commercial sensitivity of an economic development, that's the answer you're going to get. This information is economically sensitive, so they won't disclose because they don't need to disclose, because that's a justification to withhold, to not disclose. Just like under GDPR, so I get GDPR requests from troublesome people, not even constituents, but people who want to try and gum my office up with pointless exercises. Thankfully, I don't do a lot of talking about people who are no interest to me whatsoever. So quite often if they put in a GDPR request, it's just a case of saying I haven't got it, and then they'll go to the Ombudsman, or not the Ombudsman, the ICO, and the ICO will say, are you sure you've not got anything? Well, I'm absolutely sure I've not got anything. And so, but it does gum things up. But that's the kind of response you'll get. And then once the true authority is transferred into the company that operates the port, those rules probably won't apply. They probably won't be an FOIable entity. And if they're not, then you have absolutely no way, which is what we found at Teesside. I just want to pick up one point, it's really important, around the claim of right. The claim of right is a really important document. It's been spoken about by me and Alec and many others over years in Parliament, and reinforced the message that sits behind that. However, it doesn't matter how right you are about these things. If you haven't got the democratic mandate to back you up to make that argument, you can talk into the wind as long as you like. No one will listen. You have to have the political mandate behind any movement that seeks to challenge the current status quo. That's the only way you'll be able to bring it into effect. We have to be a political movement. No getting away from it.
Well, as Neil's pointed out about the FI things, I mean, this was what we used to run into in the council, particularly with arm's length bodies. We hated arm's length bodies because they would go away, they would spend a large amount of money. You would ask what was going on, they would tell you that they couldn't tell you because it was commercially confidential, and they would only turn up when they were bankrupt or when they were in trouble. I remember just before I left the council, and when they were merging healthcare and social work, the big thing of health and social care that was going on at that point, that they were stum about what was happening for several months, and then they turned up just a week before the budget and told us that they'd gone £10 million over budget, and could we bail them out please? To which I exploded, but sadly others agreed to do it. I would have liked to have left them in the lurch, but anyway, that's the kind of problem. What I would say is each thing that we're talking about here isn't sufficient in itself. Again, I'm going to slightly disagree here with Neil. So pursuing the claim of right isn't going to work in itself. Having it's important. Having the political mandate is not going to work in itself. Having the movement, it's not going to work in itself. Having the three together is what you need. There isn't a silver bullet. And what I'm trying to put across to you just now is I think there is a huge number of people at grassroots in all the kind of what I would say left and centre parties who are of goodwill with this, and who I think can be mobilised, but we got to do it quickly. We've got to get out there. Now, I used to be in an organisation called, years ago, I started off in health politics, believe it or not, called the Scottish Health Campaigns Network, and we arose when they were trying to shut hospitals across the central belt of Scotland, right? And our group comprised of, the core group comprised of about 12 people, mostly consultants and doctors and stuff like that, right? We had a budget of about £1,000 a year. We created absolute hell for the politicians, absolute hell. And we stopped a lot of things happening. We stopped Monklands being shut down. We managed to reverse legislation which would have privatised GP care and stuff like that, and would have led to privatisation by the back door of the NHS. And we did all of that in a shoestring budget with £1,000. And without, although we had the backing political parties, without it actually being party political, and that was because the vast majority of people agreed with us, and because we were able to mobilise through media meetings and stuff like that. That's actually what we need to do, guys. Okay, and that's what it is possible for you to do.
Now I'm nervous. I'm nervous anyway. But I might ruffle a few feathers. But as I think, is it Julie said that we're being watched. Well, I'm on several lists, so actually I don't care anymore. Now, as Frank said, this is urgent. This is the end game. This has been going on. The planning for these things, these Freeports, has been going on for decades and decades. You just look at the Trust Ports Act 1973, I believe. Now you're talking about freedom of information requests. When they were set up so they are not subject to freedom of information requests. So the Cromarty Freeport is a trust port. Many in Scotland are. I think Alf Baird mentioned at Inverness that Aberdeen wasn't chosen because it's still a municipal port. It's not a private port. Now, I have done my own investigation, which a couple of people know, pulling in all sorts of threads. I'm autistic, so I see links that other people don't see, and they're terrifying, I can tell you. I've done an in-depth investigation to Cromarty Firth Freeport. I live in Elgin in Murray, which is awful, I can tell you. Everything and everyone has been captured, and of course we're being sliced up, and that's no accident either, because my part of Murray where I am will be taken into part of what will be the Freeport area. Now, I've been keeping an eye on the community councils in the Cromarty Firth Freeport area. I keep saying you need to invite the community councils to these sorts of meetings. They know what's been going on. Now I'll just try to tell you something to scare you enough. The Cromarty Firth Freeport bid was led by the Global Energy Group. They own absolutely everything around the whole of that area, Nig, Cromarty, just everywhere. They're the Clan McGregor, basically. Their registered address for all of their subsidiaries is 13 Henderson Road, Inverness. I took a screen capture and I made a bit of a joke. Where have they put their millions? Are they in one of these 3 sheds, or have they stuffed them into this blue shipping container? That's the registered address for millions and millions and millions. Now, there's a farmer at Nig. A couple of years ago, he wrote to the Cromarty and District Community Council to get support from them. He wanted to turn some of his land back into a golf course for the benefit of the community. And basically he said that he knows he can't do that. What's the point? Because the Global Energy Group, if they want his land for something to do with what they want to build in Nig, they can just force him to sell it to them. Now that's before the Freeports came in, compulsory purchase, right? And the Cromarty and District Council, they cannot get any of their freedom of information requests, any answers from the Global Energy Group. All of the councils are in it. This goes far, deep, wide. It goes back decades, possibly 100 years. And Scotland, and I'm going to use this in the widest possible term, and I've got a dry mouth because I'm nervous, has been groomed. The whole of our infrastructure, I'm talking health, third sector, everything, has been set up so that we will have no power and no democracy to fight this. It's as serious as that. I haven't terrified myself looking into stuff for the past 8 years to keep quiet about it. and I'm going to make a big point here. Neil, I think you've got some lovely people in the Alba Party. However, I'm with Frank. God, sorry, I'm so nervous. I've got a really dry mouth. We've almost not got enough time, okay? The time to elect political parties again that we want is after Salvo kicks in. Because otherwise there'll be nothing left. With Salvo, it's logical, it's legal, it's quick. We just claim everything back that was always ours first. We haven't got time to deal with these multinationals and thank you, people from, not even just outside Scotland, but people from you know, outside of the UK. We do not have the time. And somebody said something about GPs. Well, I'm not sure whether people know that GP practices are private. Only GPs can be partners, so that's elitist for a start. At mine, for example, they all work part-time because obviously they get paid too bloody much. But the other thing about it, which people probably don't know, with GP practices, and I'm mentioning it because I'm saying this is throughout everything. Okay, the whole of our everything has been captured, and don't even get me started on the third sector. So GP practices, if they rent a building, 100% of that rent is reimbursed to them. Now, I don't know any other private business that has it that good, do you? I'm going to stop there, but just to say, we need the claim of right first. We have no time to mess about with anything else.
Yeah. There's a list.
Just going off what Neil was saying there, we've actually been talking about this in Salvo, and you're probably going to hear about it quite shortly. But we've got a lot of MSPs, we've got a lot of MPs. Very few of them are doing anything. Apologies, I know you are. But basically, we're all constituents, and they have surgeries. Usually on a Friday, sometimes on a Saturday, depending where they are. At the end of the day, it's like their surgery lasts for maybe an hour and a half, and then they go away home with their dinner. If 10 or 12 or 15 years old or not, won't ask the same question every Friday. Like, keep them here at 9:30 at night, so they can't get home. And if they don't answer the questions, come back the next week, ask the same bloody questions. Easy. That would piss them off.
That was what you call direct action.
That's what you call direct democracy.
It's my turn as well. Yeah. If the panel can correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but hopefully this could well be a very simple way to explain it to people. Freeports. The way I see it is that it's all about adding value to goods. So what you do, and you want to get them out your system, and so what you do is you set up a deep water port or you set up an airport, and the raw product comes in. You then add value, you assemble it, you make it into something else, you do whatever it is, and all the companies are in there to do that. And if you're a company outside the Freeport, you might be able to apply for Freeport status, so you could do whatever it is. But you've got a bit of an issue trying to get your product from the port. You'd almost have to have a lorry that's a Freeport to get it from inside the Freeport to your company if it's anything tangible. It's okay if it comes up a wire, you know, if it's a legal document, so you could have like a law firm outside the Freeport that applies for Freeport status. So you've got this situation where where you've got these companies within the Freeport. Now, then it becomes really quite easy to kind of logically extrapolate it and just see where it all leads. So you've got these companies, and they're making an absolute wedge of cash inside these Freeports, and as I've already alluded to outside, the companies outside the Freeport either get into the Freeport or wither on the vine. And then the money that these free ports are making, you probably find that these free ports aren't even going to be limited companies. I would be very surprised if they're not limited liability partnerships. The limited liability partnership is something that sits in a Cayman bank account, basically. It's what runs the Cayman bank accounts, and that's why they're there. So that anybody that's got a share in these LLP companies can then take interest-free loans. So these free ports are just another money grab so that the well-to-do can take interest-free loans against these, the money that goes into these free ports. So you've got this kind of situation where you've got these companies making this money and a conduit straight into Cayman bank accounts. We're not going to see any of that. And then because you've got this system where the goods come in, the value's added, they sell it on, the money then comes from other countries straight through these companies, straight into the Cayman bank accounts, doesn't touch the sides. No taxation's paid. The local councils that collect your buckets, they're not going to have any money to do that. The services that are run everywhere, libraries, swimming, whatever it is, they're going to go rack and ruin. And it's us that's going to pay the price for that. So that's a really simple message to put forward. So I think that's probably a nice, easy way to get, go out there, spread the word, and describe the horror of what's coming to people. So any of that wrong, by the way, panel? There you go, spot on, guys. Spread that word.
Yeah, that's an excellent, very concise description of basically what's happening with it. It's a bit like, it's like the big companies, like Amazon and folk like that, who set up their, their sort of domiciles and places offshore and stuff like that to avoid tax. So this is a wee bit like setting up one of those places, but in the middle of Scotland, to do exactly the same thing, so they can register there and then they don't have to pay tax. And this is the thing, the government's going to be subbing them the tax. They're going to be, but I mean, if there's a shortfall, then what's the local authority going to do for money? And I can guarantee you there'll be a blooming shortfall.
The only additional comment I'd make to that is that there's no evidence that free ports increase local economic activity, but there is a lot of evidence that businesses that currently sit outside the curtilage of that free port will move their economic activity inside it because they can't compete otherwise, and so it does suck economic activity in, but it defeats the revenue creation for local authorities. So, for example, one of the biggest accounts that Fife Council has in terms of its rates income is the petrochemical plants at Musmorton. Now, if they are inside, that is a massive blow to Fife Council's income.
A massive blow to folk county.
I presume the fire brigade still have to make sure the place is safe. The fire brigade does not get any money.
No, they don't. No, they don't, because the dockyard's got their own fire service. Regarding, there's two things here. Now, a business outside the free ports can actually claim money from the government. There's a wee fund, Westminster, they're awfully kind at times. Now, goods that arrive in these free ports, and now then, like for example, you order a telly. Now, anybody that sees that the Russell's wagon's kicking about Grangemouth with all the containers in the back. Now, anything within these free ports is duty free, technically. Anything outside the free ports is duty applied. So if you buy a telly, where does that duty get added on? So it affects us, again, when we go to buy things that have been imported. So that is also part of the free ports concern. There isn't nothing good about these things at all.
Alright, hello. I came here tonight to hear about free ports, and I've heard they're abominations, they're going to be run by criminals, goods are going to be coming in. I haven't actually heard how they're going to impact us personally, but that aside, I think within this whole, the impression I get is we all know the one thing that could put an end to any worries about Freeports. Do we not? Scottish independence is the one thing that would put an end to all this crap.
No.
Now, my concern here is squirrels. We've seen them all our bloody days, and my concern is this is another one. We take our eye off the ball, oh yeah, let's get into stopping Freeport. The important thing at this bloody moment is getting Scotland away to fuck for Westminster as soon as we possibly can. Right? One fucking first priority, independence. Freeports then go away to buggery, no longer a concern. Should we be wasting time on a squirrel potentially?
This is certainly not a squirrel. Right, now you're talking about you're talking about independence, right? The Freeports, they are happening, trust me. Right, this contract, no listen, go just listen for a wee second. There was a bit of paper that had Nicola Sturgeon on it, First Minister at the time. It was with Kate Forbes, who was the Finance Secretary, and it was with a gentleman by the name of Gove, the right cretin looking individual that he is. Now these Freeports are happening, trust me. Right? There is things you can find online. There is a lot of things you can't, unfortunately, as far as Forth and Inverness. Now if you want to look for information how bad these places are, you can find plenty of information by the ones down south. That is a given, because there's a lot of people down there that have not probably had the same opportunities that we had. Now you talk about independence, rightly so, I'm 100% behind it, always will be. But until we stop these Freeports, we have to stop these Freeports. Because if, as I said, if the
Freeports...
Freeports...
Just tell me they're happening, how do you stop them?
Right.
If they're happening.
Right, well, how do we stop poll tax? There is ways of doing things.
We had poll tax.
Right, what I'm going to say...
You remember that? We had
right.
a year of poll tax in Scotland.
Right, and you're going to just listen for 2 seconds.
Well, some extent.
You're going to listen for 2 seconds, right? Now, that's all I'm asking, 2 seconds.
Right.
2 seconds of your time. Freeport's happened today, and the glorious event will become independent next week happens. Now, we all saw what happened with Brexit, when you had MPs trotting backwards and forwards, arguing over bits and pieces. Now, what these things do bring to Scotland is hard borders within Scotland. And what we find then is we have to fight hammer and tong to get our own land back. That's what these Freeports do. So I'm 100% behind you with the independence side of things. But we have to start Freeports. We have to
you
do
just tell me you can't stop them, they're happening. He did, he said Freeports are happening.
The Freeports are in motion.
So what would stop them in their tracks? Independence. Correct?
A moratorium or something similar.
Otherwise,
right.
Otherwise, what's going to stop them?
See public meetings. See when you're talking to your pals. The more people understand about Freeports, the better. Because the information regarding the fourth one, especially, is very far and few in between. If you want to find information, what I found personally for me that made me as passionate as I am towards trying to stop the things, is what you read about down south. Now, we're not just up against companies, we're up against politicians here, because they're all wanting to line their pockets. And that's where you've got anybody that's linked. Well, obviously President Company accepted, you have to say that, right? He's one of the good guys. But when you've got Tories that are willing to throw millions of pounds into the fourth, you better be damn sure that they're wanting multi-millions, trillions back in return. And that is what's going to do. The money that comes out of these places is astronomical. And there'll be no benefit whatsoever to Fife, to Edinburgh, to Falkirk and Gravesend. None.
But you're going to cash coming up through your
Yeah. Can I just say something that's not been said yet? These contracts for these Freeports are 25 years, and the contracts will be tight. We'll not be able to sue them. We'll not be able to dissolve them for 25 years. So we have to stop them before they get that far.
My understanding is these contracts are with the Westminster government.
Well, my pockets are fully unlined, certainly with cash in. No, but in terms of in terms of well, if they're going to happen, we should just give up. Well, you can't take that attitude, because you've got to have something that you stand for or stand against in politics more generally. So we need to have galvanising messages and galvanising issues that we get behind. All I would say is what a Freeport is. So if you think back to when Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister and she started selling off all the nationalised industries and selling people what they already owned, which was effectively a form of robbery, because all she was doing was handing over vast industries into the hands of a select few people who then have gone on to make many millions of pounds on the back of it, a bit like the oligarchs in Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed. But this was done deliberately. This is an extension of that, but this is privatisation on stilts. This is privatisation of whole swathes of land, not companies. This is a different position. Now, the entities that will sign up to these contracts, as Izzy was saying, that will be the UK government, and if it's the Scottish government, it's the Scottish government as an entity of the UK state, not a representative body of the people of Scotland, which is a completely different animal. You know, so the independent government of an independent Scotland will renegotiate the terms and conditions of anything that operates within its boundary, and hopefully we will nationalise certain industries, certainly would if I had my way. So it's not a defeatist argument to say this is common, it's just the reality that every single major political party that is active, whether they're an English party or a Scottish party, supports the introduction of free ports in the Cromarty Port and the Fourth Estuary. That is the problem, so they are coming. It's what we do in opposition to that as a movement, not as a political party. So go back to the point about, yeah, of course the claim of rights is important, of course independence is important, and of course we all want it straight away, but we have to have a mandate from the people. No swift argument is going to just deliver it overnight, because you need to have the backing of the people, because the rest of the people who don't understand your argument are going to go, hang on a second, I didn't agree to that. So you have to win the people.
How to frighten a politician? Turn up at their surgery, okay? Nobody in here trusts politicians, and you're quite correct, right? Don't trust me either. Don't trust me. Don't trust us, right? But how do politicians operate? If nobody makes a fuss, they don't care. If one person turns up in their surgery, they start to listen. If 5 people turn up in their surgery on the same issue, that's when they really start to get worried. And if nothing else convinces them, that will convince them to start doing something about it. Okay, this is what I'm saying to you, and Frank Gore here was making the same kind of point about women who won't push, that when something was getting suppressed, without getting into that issue particularly, that when something was media suppressed, when it was trying to be introduced under the table, basically what Women Don't Push did was they turned the tables, they went out, they shouted loud, they went to social media, they went round doors, and it worked. It does work. It's, you know, it does seem like a fairly simple thing, but think of it this way: if I told you to do a difficult thing, would you do it? You probably would. So why not do the simple thing that I'm telling you to do? Just go and bite their ear. Okay, or maybe other places as well. But that is the most direct thing you can do right now. And please tell your pals. Do that as well, because as I'm saying, there's a whole groundswell of folk who never gave any consensus, who never would give any consent. I think when, now I'm trying to think, this might have been, was a consultation went out in fracking, in particular for example, and I think it was 83% against. It was something like that, but the responses came back. That's what you're looking at. Just speak to people, okay? Well, we need to, I mean, there needs to be a further conversation about this, I think, but go and see your politician and stare them down and ask them why the hell they weren't at this meeting tonight as well.
Could I ask John, quick question, John, it's me again. Could you tell me, we were talking about the position of the unions in the whole of the UK, because obviously they're affected down south, the same is going to be affected up here. Is there, have the unions got their head around this? Do they realise what's going to mean for their members? If not, they need to be, informed. Thank you.
I think that the meeting at Lambert, that partly he spoke, partly's a good friend of mine, we're both South of Lanarkshire. He, as a member, he wasn't in charge or affiliated with the unions as per se. No. He was actually going to get in touch with them and try and get that side of things moving, because we need as many people. We could set aside the politicians having their outside their doors. Right, that's fine. But the people are the important part here, because without the people, nothing will ever happen. And we could have these meetings, 20, 30 can turn up, but it's until the other 20, 30, 40 turn up. And when I say what I say about happened in Falkirk, I had I would say about 20 or 30 leaflets, and I could only hand out 4. And as I say honestly, it wasn't for the want to try. It was only because I came across 4 people that had no idea about Freeport, and they were from Falkirk. And obviously, you try and explain the best you can. But when you come to the meetings, like the elaborate meeting, the meeting here today, the one in Edinburgh, hopefully with these they start expanding and they start becoming more, and then they start becoming busier. And then we try our best, because that's all we can do. I'm not going to give up. I might not be able to put that much into it, but it's going to be my bit. And hopefully you can put your bit in it. And then that bit adds to another bit, and so on and so on and so on. And then we try and get where we need to get. But the unions, hopefully everything's going to come and help us. And I hope that maybe answers your question a wee bit.
I'll be there, certainly. But I don't want Neil thinking that I'm dissing the politicians. We've all got our part to play, haven't we? And if we do our bit, and the politicians do theirs, it's just that at the moment it's urgent, isn't it? And for the best will in the world, getting elected and all that does take sometimes years. But we don't just wait for that. We can be doing our bit on the way, But it's certainly a very serious situation.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I favour Scotland United, because Scotland United immediately takes the narrative away from political parties and talks about a movement. And I know people certainly in my party are sick hearing about it, because they immediately assume that Scotland automatically means that we must join with the SNP, and many people are understandably aggrieved with the party that they were members of for many, many years because of a bad experience. But it doesn't. It talks to an idea where the movement gets front and centre and takes control of an issue that we feel a shared passion for. And one of the things I think is most important is that it galvanises forces out with politics, particularly from Civic Scotland, people who are leaders in their own right, in their own sphere of influence in wider society. Because what we don't need a bunch of posers who are going to go to Westminster and say fine lines in the chamber, as I've heard them do so many times, and in the full knowledge that they're doing bugger all outside the chamber to back that up. I think it's unforgivable.
Yes, you can.
We've heard that the arrangements around Freeport is financially disadvantageous to local authorities who seem to be backing the idea of Freeport. What's in it for them that they've been, if you like, bought they're buying into the idea of Freeport. The political parties and the local authorities, you've said, are all in favour of them. Why, if they're not going to benefit, if in fact they're going to be disadvantaged by the hemorrhaging of tax money, rates money, why would they favour it? Who's getting bought off?
2008 financial crash. Icelandic Bank went kaput, and a lot of local authorities went with it. Now, I think it's personally my opinion, public money should never be allowed to be invested in anything apart from the people, as in Fife, GPs, schools. You look around about you, how easy is it to get a doctor's appointment, because there's no GPs. Now, swinging back to Teesside, I'm sorry that I know I keep going back there, but that's the only bit that I really can find a lot of information. Now, there was an article put up that somebody actually got a snippet of the accounts. £150 million was taken out by the people that had their interests in there. 5 million were put back. Now, all the councils and all the rest of them that are in all these companies, they will get something from that. But who is rubbing whose back? We don't know. I don't know. You'll never find that out, as we found out with the freedom of information, because anything that's in that Freeport is technically a law on its own, and out with the laws that we all live by, basically.
Yeah, I get that, but the councils have to balance their books. They get money from central government, they get money, a certain proportion of it from council tax, a certain amount from business rates, and they have to spend it to provide the services that they provide. If that money is reduced by having a Freeport on your doorstep, how do they, why do they favour it? Why do they approve it?
Well, because I mean, it's like when you sit down with a salesperson who's trying to sell you a policy, they tell you all of the good bits. They tend not to concentrate on some of the risks or the small print in that. The way that Freeports are a UK government policy. It's now backed by the Scottish government, and when it gets down to local government level, they have to find a way to work with it. So they'll be asking questions about, how do we access funds to make up for what we're losing? Brexit's a great example of that. So levelling up and various other funds that were supposed to replace EU funding. Well, the reality is, the money is not there. So what happens is that services and projects get cut because their money isn't there. But they've got to respond to the new economic environment that the UK government and the national government in Scotland have put in place. They haven't got an opt-out. So the officers have to make the best fist of it, and they will have their conversations at COSLA and various other places about what they're worried about. But the way that it's expressed, so the way that they sell it is, bottom line, it is the gross value added. So GVA is the number that they'll use, and that is a measure that says this is the additional economic activity that will come into your council area based on the establishment of a Freeport. And at the moment, the GVA estimate for the Fife part, I think it's actually the whole Forth Estuary actually, so it's not just Fife, is £4 billion. Now, if you think for a minute that these corporations are throwing money at a Freeport for the benefit of the people of Fife, I've got a bag of magic beans to sell you. I mean, this is the establishment of a tax haven. It is the establishment of a secret jurisdiction. It is the establishment of a free-for-all for corporate interests and entities. And of course they're going to throw money at it because they will cream so much profit back from this. It's a bit like isn't it great, we sold Scotland for 700 million. Sounds like loads of money to people who are scraping by in a cost of living crisis. But the reality is that it's pennies. It's not even a reasonable fraction of the value. So it's how it's sold, and council officers are really busy, and they just they have to implement it. They haven't really got a choice to do.
Sadly.
Sadly, no.
Yeah, if I can come back on this now, I'm saying this for the third or fourth time. What you need to understand about your councillors, apart from maybe thinking that they're acting out of malice or someone's giving them a brown envelope or stuff, which is probably all popped into everyone's head, is that they might simply not understand what's happening. Okay, when you're a councillor, you have to deal with an awful lot of things, stuff that gets thrown at you, and sometimes sometimes officers aren't too keen for you to find out. Okay, let me give you a quick example. When I was at North Lanarkshire Council, so I used to be on the finance committee, and one week or 1 quarter our papers were late, which was always a bad sign. We were meant to get them before we got into the meeting, but the papers were sent out late, and it ended up that a lot of us didn't actually get the finance paper about 2 hours before the meeting, right? So we smelt a rat with it, and we were flicking through it, trying to find out what the hell was going on, right? And I actually came across it, which was that they were changing the treasury rules of the council to allow the council to buy junk bonds. This was something that was basically kind of outlawed in most councils after the Western Isles crash in 1993 when BCCI, the bank, crashed. So this is a major thing. Now, fortunately, we spotted that. We spotted it an hour before a meeting. We managed to run in and tried to gather up opposition to it. We didn't quite make it. I mean, we still voted against it, those of us that understood it and so on. But that is a situation that a lot of local politicians find themselves in, and very often they're the last to know. And apart from anything else, this is why I'm saying to you, it's so important for you to go and see your councillors and say to them, listen, do you understand what's going on here? Do you understand what powers this is going to take off you? Do you understand what this is going to do to local businesses? Speak to your local businessmen as well, because they probably won't know about this either. When you go into your local shop, say to them, do you know what this Freeport's going to mean for you? Do you realise this is mean that he's going to get his tax paid for him and you're not? Do you realise that this is that you're going to have to sell goods with duty on them and he's not? And that you're going to have to move in there or die? You need to get the word around to these people because they're not educated on it. And this is why it's so important that when you leave this meeting tonight, you speak to all these people. Okay, because you can reach them, you know where they are, we don't, and they're not everyone's on Twitter and social media, and even if they are, it's hard to put across what actually is happening with this and how momentous it is. So please, go and bite their ear.
Could I answer what you just said there, by the way? In Glasgow, which is no part of the Freeport, but like basically, they have actually sold public good land or assets to half the value of the Scottish budget in a year on the American Stock Exchange. It's a common good. Common good assets have been basically stolen and sold by Glasgow Council. And who else is not going to do that? Because at the end of the day, Glasgow got away with it. As I say, that's yours, that's mine, that's our stuff. I mean, I think the People's Palace is the next thing that's going in Glasgow. It's like the People's Palace. It should tell you exactly what it is. It's gone, and that's going to happen everywhere. And just another thing while we're on it, the councils. Who's going to pay for the infrastructure in all these new walled cities or whatever it is that they're putting up? I mean, when they put their big fence in Burnt Island, who's going to build the new roads in there? It's bad enough trying to get into Burnt Island now. It's like the size, they might get away with it. If you look at all the nonsense that there was just up the road for a year, when Amazon came up and they built a new run off the motorway, ended up the council ended up having to pay for a load of it. Amazon didn't pay for it. And it's going to be the same here again. We're going to get lumbered with the debt. Your council tax won't get frozen that year. And we'll end up paying for it the same. At the end of the day, it's like, I would be quite happy to chain myself to one of these gates and no move. And I think a load of us need to do that.
I've got another point to make. This came on Twitter, and it's an exchange between Angus Brenda McNeill and Steve Barclay at the Trade Committee in February this year. And I'm not going to go all through it, but what I will say to you is Steve Barclay, Angus McNeill's pressing about funding, and we're all expecting this to be of the levelling up. I'll tell you how levelled up it is. The point is, this is Steve Barclay, the point is, as with other areas of policy, the devolved administrations would then allocate to Freeports the exact same way as they would for other things that they are being funded through the Barnett consequentials. So we're not getting any extra money. Yeah.
You know, I'll not go into this at any length because there's a brilliant piece written by Robin Calpine going into the new financial framework that was agreed over the summer by Shura Robertson with the UK government. And it has, as part of the mechanism, there is a disincentive for the Scottish Government to invest in local services. So the more money the Scottish Government gives to local authorities to support public services, that is measured against the economic performance of London, so the highest performing economic area in the whole of the UK. If it doesn't exceed the economic performance of London, which is never going to happen, if it doesn't exceed it, then the budget to Scotland gets cut. And so the more we invest in our public services, the less money we get. And on top of that, the revenue, the additional revenue that the Scottish Government are currently gathering through the uplift in our income tax, 70% of that is being clawed back by the UK Treasury. So we hardly see any benefit from it anyway. Yep. So why would you do it? Because you're not getting it. And why would you agree to this? So the Smith Commission said that we would have a better financial settlement, and the new fiscal framework ties us into a downward spiral of disinvestment in public services and a clawback from the Treasury of our own income tax. Everything is being constructed against the interests of the Scottish people. You know, I really sometimes wonder, what on earth are the Scottish Government doing? They're supposed to, you know, I am biased. I'm absolutely 100% biased. The government that Alex Salmond led was about making Scotland look like a country that could run itself. And since then, it's been made to look like a country that's running itself into the ground. And there is no getting away from that fact. And this fiscal framework just underscores that belief. Absolutely. Why would you do such economic harm to your own people?
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's it for the night. It's after 9. Can I say thank you very much to Julie, to John and to Neil for coming along tonight and answering these questions. And thank you very much to everybody that came tonight. You've been brilliant. Thank you very much.
30-odd people here. I came in late, so I apologise for that. Have we put our names on a bit of paper or something? Or an email?